Hello everyone, we are going to study parathyroid gland in this video. The parathyroid gland are found embedded in the dorsal surface of the thyroid gland. So this is the thyroid gland and this is the dorsal surface, and these are four embedded on the dorsal surface of the thyroid gland, and this is the trachea. Because the thyroid gland is located on the upper side of the trachea, so I have drawn the trachea also, and this is the H-shaped thyroid gland. So we are not able to see the isthmus because it is on that side, so we are able to see the posterior side. So we can either say the dorsal side or this is the posterior side of the thyroid gland, and these parathyroid glands are embedded in this thyroid gland. However, they are totally independent of the thyroid, both developmentally as well as functionally. So these glands are functionally differently, and the thyroid gland has to function differently, and both of them secrete different hormones. The parathyroid glands are almost 2 to 4 millimeter long, and they weigh almost 0.05 to 0.3 gram in weight. So they are not very big, they are almost of the size of a small pea. They produce the hormone, just one hormone, which is either called as parathormone or it is known as parathyroid hormone. The function of this parathyroid hormone is to help in maintaining the level of calcium in blood. This particular hormone is antagonistic to calcitonin or thyrocalcitonin that we studied in my previous video, which is produced by the thyroid gland. So thyroid gland produces this calcitonin, and this helps in decreasing the calcium level in the blood. So we can call it to be hypocalcemic. It brings hypocalcemia, that means it lowers the calcium level in the blood. But parathormone increases the calcium level, so we call it to be hypercalcemia. So they both are antagonistic. Since this is decreasing the blood calcium level and parathormone is increasing the blood calcium level, the function is just the opposite, so we call such function as antagonistic. So parathormone and calcitonin both regulate the level of calcium in the blood. Now let us see the mode of action of the parathormone or the parathyroid hormone, which is secreted by the parathyroid gland. When is parathormone hormone secreted? Whenever there is low calcium level. When the calcium ions are low in the blood, automatically the parathyroid gland secretes parathormone. It has effect on three different organs of the body. One is the small intestine. Small intestine is meant for the absorption of food because of the presence of villi in the internal lumen. The second organ is the kidney, and the next one is the bone. So there is an effect of parathormone on bones, which is known as Osteoclast Ik Activity. There are two types of cells. Osteoblast, the C will be replaced by B. Osteoblast, which helps in depositing the calcium in the bone. So that will help in formation of bones. But what is Osteoclast Ik Activity? In this, the calcium is drained away from the bones. So in this way the calcium ions are removed out of the bones. This is known as, the word osteo is related to bones always. So osteoclast Ik activity, which releases the calcium ions from the bones into the bloodstream. Then there is reabsorption in the kidneys. The kidneys are packed up of nephrons. The nephrons have the PCT, the DCT, and the loop of Henle. So from here the reabsorption of the calcium ions takes place, because if it is not reabsorbed, the calcium ions will be removed out in the form of urine. So during the urine formation, there is a particular step called as reabsorption of all the useful materials. So when the nephric filtrate, which is moving in the nephron, is carrying certain calcium ions, the kidney will help in reabsorption of the calcium, and then it will save it and it will pour it into the bloodstream. And from the small intestine, the increase in uptake of calcium ions takes place. So when you have eaten something which is related to milk or milk products or egg which is rich in calcium, when it is moving from the small intestine, the increase in uptake of calcium ions takes place. Now this is dependent on vitamin D. If there is lack of vitamin D, this increase in uptake of calcium ions won't be possible. So for the absorption of calcium ions from the small intestine, it is so necessary that the body has vitamin D, that is calciferol, and this vitamin D is actually taken in the presence of sunlight. Now how is it that the vitamin D is in the presence of sunlight taken by the body? It is so that in the presence of sunlight, we have in our body 7-dehydroxycalciferol. This is a precursor of vitamin D. So when this gets activated in the presence of cholesterol, the cholesterol is also present underneath the skin. So this is relative to cholesterol, and when the sunlight reaches the skin in the presence of this cholesterol, the 7-hydroxycalciferol is activated, which is the precursor of vitamin D. And as soon as the vitamin D is synthesized, the increase in the uptake of calcium ions takes place. So it is necessary for the presence of vitamin D, and if there is no vitamin D, the calcium ions will be lost. Even if you are eating a lot of things which are rich in calcium diet, but then also it will not be absorbed. So the presence of vitamin D is necessary, and this vitamin D will help in the uptake of calcium ions. So this is how we see that the increase in calcium ions takes place in the blood. So here also it will go to the blood. In this manner, we see that calcium ions from the bones are released into the blood. The reabsorption of calcium from the nephric filtrate in the kidney also takes place in the blood, and also the increase in uptake of calcium ions takes place in the blood, and therefore the increased calcium level gives a negative feedback to the parathyroid gland to stop the release of parathormone. In my previous video, part 1 of endocrine gland, I have talked about what is the feedback principle or the feedback mechanism on which the endocrine glands work. So when there is enough amount of calcium in the blood, then there is a negative feedback which goes to the parathyroid gland, and then it will stop secreting the parathormone. So parathormone is secreted only when there is low calcium level in the blood. Now it is very necessary that 9 to 10 mg of calcium is maintained in the body. Now this is a very small range. If it goes below 9, we always talk, whenever we talk like 9 to 10 mg, we are always talking per 100 ml of blood. So if it is less than 9, we say it to be hypocalcemia. Hypocalcemia, that means calcitonin is active, and at that time calcium level is less, and when it is more than 10, then at that time the calcium level is more. So in this way, parathormone and calcitonin help in maintaining the calcium level in the blood. Now let us study the disorders related to the parathyroid gland. When it is secreted less, the parathormone, then it is called as hypoparathyroidism. thyroidism, and when it is secreted more, the over secretion, then it is known as hyperparathyroidism. What happens in hypoparathyroidism? It leads to a condition which we call as tetany. This means when there is hypocalcemic activity, or when there is less secretion of the parathyroid hormone, at that time there is deficiency of calcium ions. The calcium ions, when become less, the automatic polarization of neurons takes place. In my previous videos, I have also dealt with the polarization and depolarization of neurons. You may see my videos for that nervous system, in which we have studied how the stimulus moves in the neuron. It is by polarization and depolarization. So the neurons automatically get polarized without any stimulus. The neurons are polarized only when there is an external stimulus. But due to deficiency of calcium, the neurons automatically get polarized, and there is continuous muscle twitch. The calcium is so much required. It is a very important iron. Calcium is required in contraction and relaxation of muscles. Calcium is required in coagulation of blood. So this is very important, and the regulation of calcium is so very important in the body. And if there is much deficiency of calcium, the neurons get polarized, and continuously there is a muscle twitch. That means the contraction takes place continuously. This continuous contraction causes spasms and convulsions, especially in the hands and legs, and this spasms and convulsions is called as tetany. So it is due to the deficiency of parathormone, and this causes deficiency of calcium, leading to these disorders or the consequences in the hands and legs, which is convulsions. So this is hypoparathyroidism. What happens when there is more secretion of parathormone? More secretion of parathormone, that means there is more osteoclastic activity, more amount of calcium is removed from the bones. So what will happen? The bones become demineralized. In the bone, if this is the bone, a lot of osteoclastic activity is taking place, so there will be a lack of calcium in this particular area. So there is a mineral deficiency, continuous, the calcium is released out, and there will be a pore which will be formed. This particular condition is called as osteoporosis. And when there is this osteoporosis, this gets filled up with fibrous tissues. This is a later stage. After osteoporosis, there is a hole, and usually the healing takes place by the fibrosis process. So the fibrous tissue gets filled up over here, and this leads to a lot of cyst formation, which is called as osteitis fibrosa cystica. This causes a lot of pain, and the bones usually become very weak. So osteitis fibrosa cystica is the disorder in the bones which is caused due to over secretion of parathormone, and when it is secreted less, it is the tetany. So this is all about the parathyroid gland and the disorders related to the parathyroid gland. If you have any doubt, you may ask me in the comment section and refer to the description box for the questions. Thank you.